Hey, I thought I'd better come online and explain a little bit about my recent burnout. And I'm definitely sort of on the path to feeling more calm and less frantic. But I wanted to just put a few words down to try and articulate what I think happened to me, because I think it's useful information. And I think we're all kind of slowly burning out in very kind of micro ways when we use technology and when we're navigating the digital space. There is a kind of natural burning out that kind of happens because screens flicker and data is thrown at us from all different directions. And so cognitively, we're put under a lot of strain when we mess around with computers and phones and technology. And probably you now listening to this, there's some degree of strain. And I attribute my burnout to trying very, very hard to grapple with all the tools that we have, but to communicate a message. And I found myself kind of being flung between YouTube, Instagram, Substack, and other bits and pieces. And it's not really intuitive to think about those tools, those platforms, those modalities being detrimental to our brains. But I had a bit of time to reflect on this, and I'm now pretty much convinced that, especially for us creatives and artists, jumping around in that digital space puts a huge strain on our brains. Because when we're in that digital space, we're not really in a creative space. We're not in our internal creative selves. We're just not there because we're looking out. We're reading, processing, flicking. And all of those modalities are all in the processing mode of our brains. That's just what our brain does to process the world around us and to try to make sense of things. When we're in our creative state, we're very much inside, we're reflective, we're listening to our intuitions and our instincts to process things from our subconscious. Even if we're doing something which is a little bit more graphic, if we're doing something graphic design, we're still messing around with the computer, but we're now processing that graphic in a slightly more creative way. It's not deep creativity, but it is a kind of halfway house. But for us artists and creatives where our resting state is more in that deep creative space of creation, coming into the digital space is a huge demand on our brains. So I just wanted to explain a little bit about why I found this particularly challenging and why me at this point in my journey find myself being completely burnt out by these tools and what I did to burn myself out in the hope that it might help some of you understand how to avoid that. I think, like all creatives, we've all got a message. We've all got something to say. And if we go back to some of the deeper meanings of artist and creative, there's the things that I regurgitate a lot. The purpose of the artist is to see what other people can't see and return to tell them of it. And that is, our job is to communicate the vision. We go out into the world, we see things differently, we interpret things differently to most people. And we see visions, we hold visions, and our job as creatives is to come back and communicate the vision, whether that's a message or a vision or an instinct or an opinion. It doesn't really matter. the purpose is that we sort of go into these unknown spaces, these places that few explore, and we come back with our own interpretation of that. And I've got to the stage in my life where I've seen something very profound. I've seen a mode of the future, a way in which the future, I think, is likely to map out. I've had a profound revelation that it's only the artists and the creatives on the planet that will be able to navigate what comes next in the next few years more than other people. And my message is kind of tethered to a bunch of things that are happening in the world that are going to become ever more disruptive over the next few years. And I won't go into it here, but I'll put a link down below for an article where I do go into this. And so in some ways my message is pretty urgent, and I'm not leaning on canvases to paint pictures of what I've seen. I'm not taking to poetry, and I'm not dancing, and I'm not expressing what I've seen in any of those ways. I found it essential now to try and communicate what I've seen to the wider world using writing, using social media now as a medium, using articles, engaging with other people, and what I'm about to do is to engage in podcasts. And this is all in the pursuit of simply trying to articulate my message, to articulate my vision, to put into words what I've seen, and to crystallize my message. And of course, every time I do this, every time I put something into writing, every time I publish something, in many ways, every time I'm working with a client, when I'm coaching, we're crystallizing the message, we're refining the message, we're getting closer to a message which is succinct, which is more easily understandable by more people. Because it's very easy for us, artists and creatives, to become very indulged in our visions, in what we've seen, and to expect the rest of the world to understand what that means, but they don't. When we're developing an image or a vision, we're developing it every time in a modality which hopefully becomes more and more understandable to more people. And so my burnout was all kind of tethered to this frantic, urgent need that I've had to put my message out into the world, but simultaneously grappling with pretty primitive tools such as social media, platforms which you can publish writing on, and all these other tools. And they're all there to help us convey the message, but the tools in themselves, they squeeze us down into a space where we find ourselves in the end creating content. I didn't really want to say much more than that. I just wanted to put some words down that attach to this burnout that I've had, and I hope that that message kind of helps some of you as well. I'll keep talking about this in more videos, but I think for now that's it.